Welcome to the Embodied Mystic podcast, where we explore the path of feminine awakening and luscious womanhood. Together we'll be diving into topics like sacred sexuality, feminine embodiment, spiritual healing, and soulful relationships. I'm your host, Tamara Fael, tantric mentor and Aries hype girl, here to guide you back to the temple of your body and fall in love with being a woman. I look forward to journeying together. Welcome to the Embodied Mystic podcast, where we explore the path of feminine awakening and luscious womanhood. Together we'll be diving into topics like sacred sexuality, feminine embodiment, spiritual healing, and soulful relationships. I'm your host, Tamara Fael, tantric mentor and Aries hype girl, here to guide you back to the temple of your body and fall in love with being a woman. I look forward to journeying together. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to the show. And if you're new here, I'm Tamar, and it's my deep, deep pleasure to connect with you in this way. We have such a beautiful Conscious Mama episode today with Sarah-Jane Perman, all about the Mother-Priestess split. I feel really good sharing this episode in this time where I felt, just a little bit wanting to be sensitive with the content that I'm sharing. And I feel really good about this because Sarah-Jane is in Egypt right now doing her prayerful priestess work with the women, which is so deeply needed in the Middle East. We both have a profound connection to the region, so just know that this episode was held by two women deeply connected in purpose, feeling the pulse of the land, and really united in this longing for peace that I know so many of us are feeling our wombs and hearts deeply resonating with in this moment. So before we get into today's episode, I did a little check-in on Instagram polls yesterday to see how everyone's doing. I love these little polls. And the majority of those who answered were feeling sad about the state of the world and also living their life. I know that there are quite a few of you listening from Israel and from the Jewish diaspora all over the world. So I am truly so glad to hear that you're taking the steps that you can to bring yourself more safety and comfort in these days. It's so, so deeply important, and truly sometimes the best thing that we can do is take care of ourselves. So I'm so glad to hear that even though you're feeling deeply impacted, of course, by everything, that you're finding your way to, keep going. I also did another poll to see what it is that you're excited to experience in my world, because this is a moment of solo spiritualpreneur real talk for a moment. I think one of my biggest roadblocks in the last while with my business is knowing actually what it is to offer. Like, I don't know if anyone else, any other business owners or those who are wanting to start a healing or wellness biz can relate, but I find it so challenging at times. There are so many things and modalities that I've done, and I sometimes get overwhelmed. I was reflecting and I realized it's kind of hilarious. I feel like a man who's just wanting to please my woman, and I want to know what she wants. It's like, I want to give her the orgasms, but I can't actually tell if she's liking it. So I loved giving you guys all of my offerings and just asking you, The results really surprised me, actually. So many of you were excited about shamanic womb work, which is honestly something I've barely even offered publicly, which feels super cool. And yeah, the other popular one was just sacred sexuality online work, which is coming for you, queens. So, for anyone who's curious about shamanic womb work, it's basically about releasing unwanted imprints from the womb space. As women, we are processing so much of our experience directly through the womb. And so, doing womb work, whether it's physical body work, it's on an emotional level, or it's like releasing shamanically, this work is so potent. So with this kind of shamanic womb work that I'm offering, because we're working in the etheric realms, like we're working in the astral plane, online actually works just as well as in person. I've been doing these in like one-on-one session formats, and they are extremely potent and yeah, have kind of been up till now a kind of secret menu offering. It's just not really something that I've been offering publicly, because more of my work has been focused on tantric bodywork. So just to give an overview of my current offerings right now, tantric bodywork sessions, so the de-armoring, which you may have heard me share about before, de-armoring, tantric massage, yoni massage. This is available for women in person only. The shamanic womb work is available online or in person. I'm offering rebirthing breathwork, so this is available online if you've experienced it before. I know a lot of you ladies have experienced it. There's a ton of rebirthing in Israel. It's super popular there, which is amazing. So online if you've done it before, and in person if it's your first session with me or anyone. And then I have the Sacred Sexuality one-to-one mentorship online, which is basically my private coaching offering. And yeah, I'm actually creating a signature one-to-one program that's going to include all of these things. So if you're listening and you're like, oh yeah, I want to do all of these things, you can DM me. I don't have any more information about it at the moment, but happy to chat in my DMs. And if you want a session in any of the previous things, the best way to book is just DM me on Instagram. So it's at TAMAR__RAPHAEL. Or you can contact me through my website, which is in the show notes. On to today's episode. This episode with Sarah-Jane Perman was so beautiful. Sarah-Jane is a mother-priestess, sacred space holder, feminine temple arts initiate, and international facilitator of embodiment and the deep feminine mysteries. Sarah-Jane is passionate about remembering the body as the chalice and vessel of high alchemy, the bridge between heaven and earth. She's in service on our planet in this time to clear old paradigms, cut through illusions, and awaken to who we really are. In this episode, we are talking about the Mother-Priestess split, which is essentially this really quite commonly held conflict between becoming a mother and being a priestess. So in this episode, we talk about what is a priestess, the connection between mother and priestess. We talk about past life experience serving in the temples, the wound of choosing between the path of spiritual service and motherhood, as well as including children in our spiritual work and the light that children hold on our planet. Sarah-Jane also shares a little bit about her journey with natural term breastfeeding. When we were recording this conversation, I really just felt so amazed by just the magic of life and the just really special, incredible, like divine synchronicities of, yeah, just like the timing of having this conversation. Like going into it, I didn't even really know fully what was the Mother-Priestess split. I wasn't sure exactly what we were going to talk about. And as we got deeper into the conversation, I realized that it perfectly correlates to this experience that I had earlier this year, and also many, many experiences that I've had to do with, you know, serving in the temples, priestesshood, and motherhood. I had this session earlier this year. It was kind of like, I don't know, an energy healing session. It was a session with like my favorite shaman witch woman, Leia. Love her. She will come on the podcast soon. I'm super excited about it. So I booked this session with her earlier in the year. I was feeling really drawn to explore with her and just to ask her, like, in the shamanic realms and the energetic plane, like, what is there anything in the field that's really blocking me from having a relationship? And this was like in the very early days that I was connecting with my, you know, the man who became my partner. And I was more feeling like, maybe there's some interferences from like the really early relationships in my life, my first loves, like those relationships ended in a really painful way. And I was like, maybe it has something to do with them energetically. And what actually transpired from the session, which blew my freaking mind, and I mean, if you don't believe in past life stuff and, you know, these kind of things, then this potentially is not the episode for you. Or who knows, maybe it will, just bring another way of seeing the world. So what kind of went down in this session, and I'm just going to ask you to keep an open mind, is that Leia basically came into contact with like an energetic entity that was basically representing a teacher of the feminine lineage that I've been working with through many, many lifetimes. And what was coming up in this session was basically that this feminine teacher that I had, like this master priestess who is, you know, in energetic form. She's from, you know, from past lifetimes. So we've been working together through multiple lifetimes. And essentially, what kind of transpired is that I had made an agreement in a previous life to devote myself fully to this priestess path. And this teacher was angry that I wanted to have a family, basically, that I want to have a family. And there was, the session became basically this big energetic clearing and basically just this deep claiming, like on a soul level, like my deep claiming for my path of being a priestess and of, you know, being a vessel for the feminine arts, and also this deep desire and longing for motherhood, and this deep soul knowing that I can do both in this lifetime and that they don't have to be mutually exclusive. And really claiming my sovereignty and my power with this teacher and saying, you know, like, this is what I'm choosing in this lifetime, and I'm claiming this for myself. And oh my gosh, it was such a beautiful, wild, magical session. And getting to have this conversation with Sarah-Jane, who is deeply embodying priestess and the mother in this lifetime is just so magical. And I really wanted to share this story before we get into the episode because I didn't share it in our conversation. And yeah, I felt like something was incomplete to share this and not to share my personal connection to this conversation. So I hope you enjoy. It's such a magical one. Let me know. You can let us know through the poll, like, is this Mother Priestess split something that you've come into contact with in your life? Even if you're not a mother yet, I know I have. Sarah-Jane, welcome to the podcast. I'm so thrilled that we're finally getting to have this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Yeah, just taking a moment to feel in. Yeah, it's quite a time on the planet right now that's almost without words, I would say. Well, there's a lot of words, there's a lot of noise.
I feel like across the world there is I feel like words that have been coming for me is just a feeling of being overwhelmed with everything that is happening. So we were just, in our little drop-in before, just acknowledging our current reality of feeling a bit like, whoa, there's a lot going on in the world right now. So speaking from that very tiny bit wrecked, very raw, very real place today. So it's beautiful to be here with you and to share.
Yeah, and to just and do it in a really raw and real and authentic way. And I mean, what a beautiful time to talk about the mother and the priestess and the relationship between the two. Yeah, I mean, this was something that I'd never heard anyone speak about this or put the two together for some reason. And I came across one of your Instagram posts and I was like, this woman is definitely something special. And then I saw this post and I was like, oh my gosh, the mother priestess split. This is so fascinating. What does this mean to you?
So, it's really, I'm just thinking of what is coming through to be shared first. So maybe I'll back up a little bit and just say, so I'm a mother. I became a mother 7 years ago now. And my work before I was a mother is in the space of feminine embodiment and priestess work, although I have to say I don't always fully identify or resonate with the term priestess these days, although it's kind of, it's an energy and it is a role and an archetype and okay, I'll acknowledge it. Yes, I'm a priestess, but something in me, I go, oh, because I feel actually maybe this is a perfect way to introduce this because, I feel like ever since I became a mother, there is a real journey of humbling that goes on. Before I became a mother, I was really on my mission in the world, doing all of my big service on the land, taking groups. Actually, no, I didn't take any groups to Egypt before I became a mother, but lots of different retreats and trainings all over the world. And I was very owning my, owning my service mission in that way. And, it's interesting, when you cross that threshold of creating life in your womb, it's like a journey of simultaneously going through, the most profound kind of breaking down and death process. It is a real motherhood. When I'm saying this, it's not specifically just the journey of being pregnant and then birthing a baby. I'm speaking more to this whole journey of becoming mother, which I know a lot of people who talk about that maiden to mother transition. So I was actually speaking to a woman the other day, asked me to share on what it felt like for me to go through that transition of maiden to mother. And I feel like a lot of people, when they share about that journey, and maybe it's more women who have more recently become mothers, it's like that transition happens immediately in the portal of birth, which, yes, there is a big evolution and rebirth that happens then. But what I have found is this journey of matrescence and becoming mother is a much more undulating and deepening and longer journey. It's not as instant as you have a baby and the initiation is complete. For me personally, the initiation has gone on, and it's like a deepening is a word that really comes to mind. It's a path of big descent. It's a path of really letting go of everything that you were to welcome in this kind of new woman and this mother that you are. And something that, just to bring in the Mother-Priestess piece, I remember, where was I? I was in Bali once, and I feel like I was already, no, Mother-Priestess was kind of already in my field. But I think, something just also in the way that I mother, like ever since I gave birth, like it felt, I didn't want to have any separation from my child. I wanted to, I haven't read all the books. I don't follow any specific method of parenting. I have really, my motherhood journey has been guided by me deeply listening in and just trusting my own inner guidance, responding and attuning to the needs of my child. And for me, that felt like, keeping him close. And I remember my mum, bless her, she said to me when I was pregnant, she said, I don't want you to feel like you need to stop this beautiful work that you're doing in the world. And so this is, I always say that, it's kind of testament to the fact that the service of motherhood never ends. And my mum said, I will be there to support you so that you can keep saying yes to the invitations that you get to, I will help you. Because not to say I can't rely on my husband for help, but, husbands are busy as well, and they have their own kind of their own stuff going on. So, so from the very beginning, with that support, it just felt like a very effortless thing to continue to do the work that I'm doing in the world with my son by my side. Often with my son in my arms when he was smaller, and I remember being in Bali, and what was her name? I don't know. It was a woman who came in to do like a sound healing on a retreat, and she said something which I remember I felt like there was a feeling of, I don't know if it was a trigger, or I just felt a bit like a contraction in my body, where she was, I don't know if she was sharing this because of me being in the space with my child, or I don't think he was in the space at that time, but she knew he was around. And she said, there was a time, back in the days of this, our, physical service in the temples, where the mothers, if, it was like a path that you needed to choose, mother or priestess. So, and I know, for so many of us, we have these memories of other timelines of priestess service in the temples. Some of them are great memories. Some of them have a lot of hard moments. I take a lot of groups to Egypt to do these kind of remembrance journeys in the temples, and let's just say the memories and the codes and the recollections are kind of the full spectrum of the shadow and the light. But that piece that she shared about this needing to choose, it really struck something in me. And there was like a really deep wound of sadness that, if you can imagine, I don't know, maybe if you feel in your own body now, maybe this has some sort of spark of relevance to you, of needing to make that choice of like, okay, if I'm going to stay in my temple service to this divine mission, I have to give my children up. Or maybe there was a piece of like, you know, birthing the children, but then they all, because you're an oracular woman, you know, they needed to immediately go off in their own kind of training to be, you know, priestess, initiates, because they are of your lineage. But there was that feeling of like having to give up. There's a split there. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, I feel like these splits, gosh, it's such an interesting time to talk about division and separation and splits that have happened in our planet. I feel like we can acknowledge that there are a lot of stories and wounds of separation that are playing out everywhere. Mm-hmm. Even, you know, when we think about the separation between our divinity and our sexuality, you know, this kind of holy whore split as well, of feeling like, you know, you cannot be this, you know, it's like that separation between our original innocence and our sexuality, you know, that I know so many of us are, you know, offering ourselves in service to repair that split, and to, you know, support other women and other men to, you know, remember the power of our life force energy, and, you know, reconnect that inner circuitry that was got a little disconnected with all of this shame and, you know, all of the pieces that we know. And I feel, you know, I don't know if, you know, you've spent much time with little children lately, but the children that are arriving on the planet right now are profound beings. Not to say we aren't profound beings, but I really feel those that are coming in at this time, they're amazing wisdom carriers in themselves. And so to have my son in all of the ceremonial spaces that I create by my side, you know, often, you know, I'm quite a family affair. On my journeys and retreats and trainings, often, you know, it might be the holy trinity of my mum. You know, mum's also a very, you know, she's been channeling for 35 years. So she and I work together energetically anyway. But this holy trinity of like mother, daughter, and child, or sometimes my husband is there too. Wow. So there's like, yeah. And that, you know, and as much as when I became a mum, I was like, okay, well, this is just, I need to do it this way because obviously I'm breastfeeding and he needs me, and this just makes sense for me to do my work. He needs to be with me. And mum said yes, so I can like keep like staying on my mission. But the more that I've kind of continued on this path, and I've actually had it reflected back to me quite a few times by people who have worked with me, they're like, whoa, there is so much going on a like level of more retemplating and healing this split. And also, you know, to welcome the children back into the temples. Oh, hold on, I'm getting goosebumps because there's something that everybody's asking me to create bespoke journeys for families, which will happen in the future, but, you know, it's a whole other logistical thing, but it's possible. But, you know, welcoming the children, you know, into our rituals, into our prayers, you know, trusting, you know, the innate intelligence that they carry. You know, I feel like in our society, it's often like, well, kids over there, particularly kids can be disruptive, but you're like, whoa, if you welcome that, you know, you get the kids to hold a pillar in a space, you watch that field just like, it's like on another level. And, yes, you know, I'm sure there will come a day when my son, as he's getting older, will say, Mama, I don't want to come with you. And, you know, and that is a natural part of development and evolution. And when I feel into what that will be like for me, you know, because he and I, you know, although we're not sitting there facilitating together, of course, but he's holding his energetic pillar, and I'm a bit like, oh, this is going to be like a whole nother, I'm going to have to recalibrate the field a little bit because we're a team, you know. And I don't know if that answered your question. I went like off on a bit of a ramble, and
so beautiful. And I love that. Yeah. The role that children play in these deep ritual spaces and in these transformational fields. I mean, it's so beautiful to be in those spaces and then, you know, hear the laughter of children playing in the distance. And it can like cut through the densest moment in such a beautiful way, you know, or meet even what's in the space. It's like children have such a beautiful role to play, but yeah, often it is the child of the facilitator, you know?
Mm-hmm. But even, you know, when you feel like, it's funny, something I speak of when, you know, in different kind of energetic practices, or even if we're thinking like alchemical union, you know, maybe this is kind of masculine, feminine, king, queen, merging in union to birth the child of the light. Like every time I speak that, if I'm guiding something, I just immediately see my son and I think this just makes sense. Here we are, we're doing all of this. I mean, you know, for those who kind of, you know, work in similar spaces to me, it's like to have that embodied representation of that energy and like the frequency of the children is just like, poof, they're just so high and magical, particularly when they're, you know, when we can kind of give them the space to be fully expressed without all of this kind of, you know, I don't know, I'm not going to speak badly about anybody's parenting choices or whatever, but to really let them be the fullness of who they are without all of this like really intense societal conditioning and maybe deeply traditional education and, you know, things that might, you know, I don't know, everybody's path is perfect, but, you know, all of those pieces that may cause them to shut down a little bit more rather than to stay in that full bloom that you see when, you know, when you witness a child, like you were saying, like that, the joy and the laughter of children. And even, you know, in these slightly denser times, you know, of this now moment on the planet, you know, I've really been witnessing my son and feeling just like, yeah, there's just such an expansive like joy. I'll get emotional like thinking about it, just feeling that like no matter how heavy and no matter how hard it gets, like the children are carrying that frequency of joy and love and openness. They're like the little living crystals that are holding the field for everybody else who is wobbling. And not to say that as like a lot of responsibility for the children, but they do it. They just do it naturally. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been finding a lot of solace going out on walks. I've been doing these daily walks and I just love seeing the dogs and the children. You know, it's like if you go on a walk, especially on the weekend, there'll be cute dogs and children are just so adorable and hilarious. And same with dogs.
Totally. And I feel, you know, we all need that frequency of like, poof, let's, you know, we talk about raising the frequency of the planet and, you know, no word of a lie, when things get heavy, excuse me, I have flying around me, lots of creatures where I live in Ibiza. But, you know, when we feel ourselves kind of going into more density, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I just, like you said, to find our way to pull us back into that, you know, high vibrational state that is not, you know, not deeply in the fear and not deeply in the, and in the grief, and not to say that we deny any of those feelings because it's so important for us to feel them, but it's like important also to still hold that field. Yeah.
Hello, beloveds. If you're feeling a call lately for some deeper holding these days, or if you're feeling drawn to the Egyptian mysteries, I want to invite you to the Blue Lotus Soul Awakening journey, which is held by myself and Yasmin Hana, who is an incredible Egyptian temple arts facilitator. It's a self-paced course that is full of incredible content like alchemical sound journeys by Yasmin, which are so magical and crazy shamanic journeys not to be missed, as well as embodiment, breathwork practice, and heart de-armoring work that I bring, as well as an introduction to Egyptian alchemy and sacred sexuality. If you took this journey as a full-on workshop and dedicated yourself solely just to this, it's a full power 3-day solo retreat. Or if you prefer more flexibility, you could choose to slowly work with the material over weeks and months. One of my favorite pieces of feedback from the course was that one woman said she was going to work with it long term and do the journey every single month. This is for you if you're yearning for an alchemical container to uplift, inspire, and catalyze your blossoming and highest evolution as a soul. This is for you if you're feeling drawn to doing a spiritual practice, if you feel called to learn more about the Egyptian mysteries and ancient Egypt. This would be a perfect course. Sign up now through the link in my bio. I can't wait to see you there. Yeah, it's almost like our inner child gets bogged down with all of this like adult stuff, all these like, injustices and wars and all of this stuff. It's like there's a child inside of all of us that is just, overwhelmed. And I feel like seeing these children in their exuberance and their like bubbling joy, it's just such a beautiful reminder of like the purity and the innocence that lies within all of us, but that can be really hard to connect with in such dense times on the planet.
Totally. So is Mother-Priestess a thing? Do you know who I actually call? Well, I don't know if anybody, do you know, the only other person that I know of is, you might follow her as well, Shona Keeley-Jones of like the Rose lineage. She and I we're old friends. So she and I gave birth to our sons 45 minutes apart.
Wow.
So same day, and we were already friends before, but there was this kind of real, we were like, okay, this is us side by side in motherhood, although we're not in the same country. And she also feels very strongly about, returning the children to the temple. But in her earlier, I remember when her son was little, she used to message me and she used to say like, wow, witnessing you and the way you weave with your son in spaces. And to be fair, like when I'm facilitating, he's not always with me. As I said, I have the service of my mother. So I'm not guiding super deep journeys with a child like chattering in my ear, because some things are just like distracting, so there's like, we find a way, but it's more having children in the space to kind of be, to bring that energy and to hold their pillar, as I said. But I remember Shona saying to me like, wow, I just think this is the way. And I think her circumstances at the time, it wasn't as easy for her to co-create with her son in that way. It's like she was like, I really have my priestess world and I have my motherhood world, and they don't merge. And then she gave birth to her daughter, and there was like a shift there. And with her daughter, she's really like, a lot of videos that she creates and everything, her beautiful little Rose Priestess daughter is there in service with her in the temple. And it's just really beautiful to witness. And it wasn't, as I said before, like it wasn't a conscious thing to be like, I am on a mission to heal this Mother Priestess wound. It was just like a really natural unfolding. And I really hope that we start to see it more. I know that there is a deep desire in a lot of women, particularly those who kind of resonate with this priestess path of when crossing that threshold of becoming mother, you know, continuing in this, like, okay, you know, this, like, because knowing the magic of the children and like how to weave it all together. I mean, it's not seamless. Nothing is seamless with a child. You have to be prepared for the childlike energy that comes, and, you know, it is how it is. But, you know, I feel like we're, in our society, we love to compartmentalize everything. Even when we think about, you know, when we're moving through these seasons of our life, of course, when we're in our maiden, you know, maybe we're more free, we can do whatever we want. We're in all of our like kind of sexual exploration and and then we descend into the season of mother. And it's not that our maiden self is like, she's not gone, she's still very there, but maybe she has her hands full and her service has changed. So maybe she's not specifically out there being this wild, sexually liberated woman who's on every ecstatic dance floor. Like, you know, if she is, I say great, but it doesn't just, life is full when you're a mum, and things do change. But I feel like, you know, there are, in our society, we love to compartmentalize so much. It's like, now you're a mother, now this happens. No, you can't. Children aren't welcome in these spaces. That's priestess work. Children over there. Do you know what I'm like? Oh, can we stop with all of this? Like,
Yes.
Everything is and we are everything, and we are all the seasons of our life. We're all the archetypes. We're all of it, you know, maybe in different sort of dominance or prominence, you know, depending on where we're at in that moment, in our cycle, in our, you know, but yeah, just no more separation. The projects, no more separation.
Yeah, I mean, I am obviously not a mother in physical reality, and yet I feel a very profound, like, spirit connection with my children. And I have for a very long time. Yeah, for a very long time. And yet I've also, had this really beautiful and intense priestess path. And like you, I don't love using that word to describe myself. I don't know, something about it.
You just do a little cringe. You're like, oh,
it's like a bit. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I love the word, and obviously the archetype and the energy of it. I'm like, fully yes, of course. And yet there's just something about calling myself a priestess that I've avoided, because it's hard to put words to, but it's like there's a part of me that feels so deeply connected to that path that I don't want to cheapen it by making it like a thing of status, or a thing of like letting everyone know that I, you know what I mean? Like, that I've named myself as something. So there's something in that. And like, as I explain it, I'm like, is it a fear of being arrogant? No, it's not that, because I'm like, I know me, you know, I know who I am. And the people who see me know who I am. And I'm sure it's, you know, many priestesses have this. It's like they're seen. People see the priestesses. You can't hide who you are. You can try and dim your light or kind of run from your gifts, but people recognize.
Totally. But I feel like sometimes there's a perception of what it means to be a priestess. And I feel like even if we look at over the last few years, let's say 7 or 8 years, I don't know, but even just, you know, as far as there being so much beautiful feminine work, so many people stepping into their path of service to the feminine, so many people calling themselves priestesses. And some people would say, I feel like sometimes some people are a bit jaded and they say, why is she calling herself a priestess? She's not like initiated, you know, that's like a big claim. She's putting herself on some sort of thing. I kind of go the other way and I say, we're all priestesses. Do you know what I mean? Just some of us have you know, submerged in that wisdom stream and in that current of the feminine more than others. Some haven't fully gone all the way in yet, but I feel like we all have that capacity in the spirit of we are all everything. I mean, that's why I really enjoy calling myself a mother and a mother priestess, because I am a mother. I'm very much a mother. If I could show you the background of where I am, there's washing and toys and, you know, my home temple, which, you know, I guess just to bring this in, because I know I was sort of speaking to this mother priestess piece very much like from my seat of being a facilitator who does do a lot of work at different grid points and calls groups together. And, you know, this is kind of what I've been doing for the last 11 or so years. But when I feel like for those of you who are listening who think like, well, I don't really do that work specifically, but I have a connection to that path of being the priestess. Like I remember Shona and I were talking about this, I don't know, a lot of years ago now. The years go by very fast when you're a mother, and the wrinkles come too. But you know, talking about, you know, when we think of rather than being a priestess in the physical temple, you know, like picturing a temple of Hathor in Egypt or something, the mother priestess is like the, you know, the priestess of the home temple space. She's holding that, you know, pillar of, you know, that central pillar of the home. And then even, you know, I won't lie and tell you that every single day in my world is very ceremonial. It used to be when my son was smaller, I admit, like we had beautiful rituals of we'd wake up in the morning and then we would go to the altar and like do our prayers and da-da-da. I feel like as you get more tired as a mother, like some things just go and you think, okay, well, maybe you don't really want to do that and you'd prefer to like play Lego with me.
There are so many ways to be a priestess, and there are so many different kinds of priestesses, and I felt it actually a very important part on my path of like actually putting down the tools and putting down the crystals, and just like stepping away and just allowing that energy to infuse into my life without all of the beautiful, lovely things that we like to have.
You are this chalice of overflowing love. Your transmission is what it is, and that's what you're here to share. You don't need a crystal chalice to do that. I mean, it's nice. Yes. You don't need it because, you know, when you're connected to that current of energy and letting that current of energy be the transmission in everything that you share, in the way that you mother, in the way that you work in the office that you work in or whatever that is. Do you know what I mean? Even I think like I used to work in the corporate world, like in TV actually back in the day. And even when I think like I used to play, when I was scared actually, when I had to go into meetings with like all the big bosses who were really scary. And I thought, please don't ask me to speak because they're just scary people. And so I would feel myself getting a bit anxious. And then I would start doing like a heart breath and like, you know, it's kind of a heart coherence technique. And I would like be like, okay, I'm going to just do some kind of my own priestess magic to shift the frequency and, you know, just kind of anchor a new field in this meeting space. And some of that was kind of my own technique because I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get too freaked out if I have to speak unless I'm like really dropping into my heart and dropping into my body. Wow. So some of it was for me, but then I was like noticing what happened to the field. So it's like when we're speaking to being in this kind of priestess, it's, you know, it doesn't have to look a certain way. This is a more of a subtle energetic, as you were saying, putting down the tools, being in this like in this energy. I love this conversation's going everywhere.
Yes, it is. It is. And yeah, there was, you know, this piece that you were sharing about before that I'd love to return to. Just about the Mother-Priestess split. And I mean, when I first asked you to come on and do this conversation, and I heard that phrase, it didn't actually land for me until today. Like, what a powerful experience I've had with this split, actually, before even becoming a mother. But just having this like deep, it's even like deeper than subconscious. It can even be connected, like you say, to past lives and what women have done previously. And like how that might interfere with becoming a mother, or not being sure about it, not being sure that those two worlds can come together.
Our society, as it is now, and maybe it never has, I don't know. We definitely used to, from what I understand and from what I remember, we definitely used to mother in more natural ways. But I feel like over time, and, because I do have these memories of, being a temple priestess or being in this kind of more oracular service, and then feeling that pain of like, oh, fuck, I have to like give my children up because it's not, being mother, I can't be in the service that I need to be, which, yes, of course, like when you have a child with you all the time, can you do your hours and hours of ritual practice and meditation? No, it's just not real life, because you have a small being that keeps pattering to you and needing things. And it shifts.
Yes.
But I feel like our society, and maybe even back from those temple times, and obviously I can't confirm any of this is just like my own kind of memories and pain. And it was when this woman, as I said, like, who was sharing a sound journey on a retreat, just spontaneously shared it. I don't even remember why she was talking about it, but I was like, oh yeah, there's something, I could feel that. I was like, oh, if you choose to be the mother, you're the mother or you're the priestess, and you don't get to be both. And it was really like, oh. And I thought, fuck that, excuse my language. In this lifetime, I get to be both. And then I was like, there's a piece here, and this is a piece of my service. Oh, so it wasn't like a conscious decision to kind of try and heal a split. But what I feel like our society doesn't really honor the mother-child dyad like it should. Even when we think of like, even the fact that we're pushed to send our kids to school quite early, a lot of that came from kind of post-industrial revolution of like trying to get parents back into the workforce. So they're like, get the kids off to school so we can like mobilize the mothers to work again. And, even to speak of like, you're only meant to breastfeed only for a bit, and then like you got to just get your baby to be more independent so that you can like go off on your own path again. You're like, what? That's not good for the mother or the child. Like, it's just crazy. And obviously, like, when I say this, I'm not shaming anybody and everybody. Like, the relationship, as I talk about, like the mother-child dyad, is unique to each mother and child. And I really feel that our children come in and choose the family constellation that they wish to be born into. And, and like, I am journeying with my son in a certain way, we're having these experiences together that for whatever reason we need to have it like this in this life. If we did this dance again in another timeline, it could be totally different. I don't know. But, I feel there's so much that pushes this separation between mother and child, and it's something that I've really, it's been raw. It's not always an easy thing to navigate in a co-parenting journey. And I have my husband and we're still in a union, but to mother in a way that actually is quite weird for the world, which is so bizarre because, I co-sleep. My son is 7, a little bit. I mean, did I think I would be breastfeeding now? No. Like, I probably, if you'd have told me when he was little that like breastfeeding a 7-year-old was a thing, I would have been like, whoa, that's way edgy and strange. I didn't know that it was a thing. But the deeper I've kind of gone on this journey and have been welcomed into circles of women who are like, advocates for natural term breastfeeding, I'm like, oh, it just makes sense, you know, like the natural age of like when a child is, you know, allow or given the space to kind of wean or complete on their own. You know, it's the average age is between like 4 and 7. You know, that's kind of across different cultures, where obviously more indigenous cultures, and there are some different cultures on the planet that are really in support of this mother-child dyad and keeping together and co-sleeping and, you know, all of this. But I feel like certainly in the West, it's not something that is so normal. And it's quite weird for me, because suddenly mothering in a way where we keep our children close until they are fully ready to take their independence becomes like some sort of revolutionary act, because it's like, you know, I guess there's another split we could discuss here of just this, like there's so many distortions on our planet that have like pulled us, well, continue to try and pull us from this kind of innate primal wisdom, or this primordial wisdom and this truth that we know in ourselves. And yet, you know, we kind of, you know, we're it's like we're taught to disconnect from this deep knowing of our body, which certainly gets very loud when you're a mother, and particularly like when you've grown this baby in your womb. You know, you are one field. Yeah, and I love that people are like, I think even scientists are now starting to acknowledge that the postpartum period is at least 7 years.
7 years.
You know, people are like, oh, I'm like, yeah, at least, you know, and then for mothers like me who, yeah, I mean, like my son has slept next to me, in contact with me for his whole life. Wow. You know, he's tried a couple of nights in his own bed, but, you know, like I obviously I'm not holding him and saying you need to sleep with me, because although mothers like me usually get accused of that, I'm like, no, I'm just kind of letting it happen naturally. And they're also just in sharing that, I just want to say, if you're a mother and you're listening to this and you think like, oh, I couldn't do that, I want some space from my child, that's okay too. Like, you have your free will here too. And if you're like, I don't want to breastfeed my child for like a really long time, I'm done, you know, that's good. You know, you get to, you're an equal voice in this dyad, you know.
Totally. I've heard that children that have this kind of access to their mother in a different way, that are, you know, sleeping in the same bed, still breastfeeding, I've heard that these children actually are more independent.
Yes.
When they stop. Like, that's just what I've heard.
Funny, I've had to, oh gosh, the amount of times that I've had chats with my husband, because this is all quite new for him. I don't think he's seen many other mothers mother in the way that I'm mothering, although, you know, in the circles that I move in, or more the village that I've created of more like-minded mothers, like it's kind of normal. And when you think like, oh, this is how animals do it. Oh, you know, this is just, you know, it's quite weird. You know what it's like in our society. It's like society has made so many things that are so natural weird. Mm-hmm. And then we question and we think, oh, I don't know, like it's all of the conditioning comes in. And so, you know, I feel like it's been a big journey of mine as a mother as well, of like really, I don't know, I feel like you're at your most vulnerable when you're a mum, particularly in the early years when there has been a lot of change. You birthed a baby, you're tired, you know, your life, it's full being a mother without a physical village. And, you know, and then always having to advocate for yourself and like speak up and say like, and try and prove why these very natural kind of normal ways are actually okay. And it kind of, that really speaks to how far our society and all the conditioning and everything has like pulled us from, you know. I remember I made a post when things were a bit challenging around this topic with my husband, where I was like, if I go back through my posts over the last few years, there's some quite interesting ones. But I remember one of them, I said, listen to the mother. And I know some of that was my own, like, just listen to me. Because I have this, you know, let's think about all of us on the planet, listen to the mother, listen to the earth. You know, we think of that split as well of, you know, we're so uprooted and so disconnected from this like deep mother frequency that the earth is. And if we were all more plugged in, I mean, would we be seeing all of the stuff that we see playing out on the planet, playing out? Oh, gosh. Yeah. If we had mothers and women, you know, with a stronger voice. And let's be honest, that having a voice and having power in our world equates to, you know, even holding the greatest, you know, like money is power. So imagine if a world where suddenly like most of the world's money was in the hands of women. I really feel that, you know, there would be a lot of different decisions made.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know how we heal all this. It's a big job, but we're on our way. And I feel like, yeah, the more that we can root down into like our own inner well of power and to trust ourselves, the more, yeah, the easier it will become anyway.
Beautiful. Sarah-Jane, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been such a unique conversation. I'm so excited to share it. So, how can people find you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, my Instagram's probably a good place. I'm sure the links will be here, but I'm Sarah-Jane Perman. And, you know, what am I doing at the moment? God, what am I doing? Most of my in-person work these days is on the land in Egypt. That sort of seems to be where I've been needed for the last 4 or 5 years. But I also, actually, I have something beautiful, returning to my more deep feminine roots and offering a deep feminine immersion in Bali in April, I think it is. I haven't planned it at all yet or dropped into what it is, but I feel like coming back to an older flavor of my work, of accessing the mother current. And children will be welcome, of course. They always are in the space with support. But yeah, I'm sure all the links will be there anyway. So
love that. Bali is amazing. Maybe I'll see you there. You're listening to the Embodied Mystic podcast. Thank you for being here and for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and that it could serve you in some way. I'd love to hear from you. My inbox is always open. Let me know what spoke to you in this episode and if there was a moment that lit you up or brought you into deeper self-reflection. If you loved this episode, I'd be super grateful if you took a moment to leave a review or share with a friend. You can do this easily by visiting the link in the show notes. It's been a real pleasure connecting with you today, and I'll see you soon.